Hey, what's up, everybody? This is an open discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and my co host today is Mr. J. I got Mr. J to come on the show with me because we're going to be talking about the birds of prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. So, have you seen it? What do you think? We're going to talk about it. And we're just going to get into a little bit of spoiler territory here. So if you haven't seen it, go and watch my movie, or I'll send Mr. J to go and bash your knees in. So, absolutely, if you haven't seen the movie, it's on HBO Max. Go watch it. They can come check us out here. And I'm not going to try to do that bad Harley Quinn impression for the rest of the show. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it. This movie is a kind of a spin-off of the Suicide Squad, and it follows the story of Harley Quinn and how in her freedom, quote unquote, from the Joker, plus the introduction of the Birds of Prey DC superheroes team. So before we start talking about it, do you know much about the Birds of Prey in the comic books?
Um, I don't really. I know of Black Canary, but
Yeah,
not this version of Black Canary. So
gotcha.
I was a little bit confused, but I was like, okay, well, I know that they keep changing Canary anyway, so I wasn't surprised either.
Yeah, although this is supposed to be the Dinah Laurel Lance that is like you've probably seen the CW show. Um, this is supposed to be the same Black Canary as that television show, as far as like who the character is. But the team of the Birds of Prey is Barbara Gordon's team. That's actually Batgirl's team, and so it was a little weird for them to try to do a Birds of Prey movie without Batgirl, and it's gonna get into why I start having a little bit of issues with this movie, as far as Harley Quinn trying to do a Harley Quinn movie and a Birds of Prey movie at the same time. But just for history lessons' sake, the Birds of Prey are normally Batgirl's team, and they will have people like Huntress or Katana from the first Suicide Squad movie. She's been on the Birds of Prey team as well, and then Black Canary has also historically been on the team.
Okay, yeah, I did not have that background, so that's probably why I didn't have a problem with it. Coming from an
Yeah.
outside view, I
Oh, yeah.
actually.
Not Yes, not Batgirl. I do mean Oracle, but Barbara Gordon. For people who don't know who Barbara Gordon is Batgirl. But she's Oracle when she gets shot by the Joker and gets put into a wheelchair. She starts the Birds of Prey team.
Isn't Barbara Gordon the wife of. Um, what's his face? Uh,
Commissioner Gordon?
yeah.
No, Barbara. So you're thinking here, Barbara Gordon. Like his wife is named Barbara, but their daughter is named has the same name. So their daughter Barbara is the Barbara that will become Batgirl. That
Gotcha,
ends up
gotcha.
working in that team with Dick Grayson and Bruce
Alright. Ugh, it's all connected now.
Wayne.
Okay. But yeah, coming from an outside view, I didn't know that there was a group called Birds of Prey. So
Yeah.
I thought it was cool just like seeing everyone together, and I liked the way that the movie was like navigated. Um, it was another one of those cases where you have a movie where there's a lot of voiceover and it's not in chronological order, and usually I hate that stuff, hate it, but it worked for me in this movie because it's very Harley Quinn, and and the way that the movie was put together in terms of not being in chronological order worked for me. Was it necessary? Probably not. But it was a lot of just starting with action and then explaining it later. So it's kind of like how, movies like The Hangover start, where you start mid action and you go back, rewind to explain how you got there. Except for she kind of does that like multiple
Multiple
times,
times.
which
Yeah.
is kind of fun. It's like, it was playful, very Harley Quinn. So I actually enjoyed it, and I kind of liked the voiceovers. I'm not sure if it was necessary to have the voiceovers, but again, very Harley Quinn, so I'll take it.
Yeah, I think that the movie is very fun. When I watched the movie this time, um, I remember that there's a lot of things that I like about the movie, and the action sequences are probably the strongest part of the movie. But they're also the part of the movie where they got one of the people that worked on John Wick to come and choreograph the action scenes for them in this movie, and that's part of the reason why the action sequences are so kinetic and fun and energetic. It's great. Like every time there was a fight sequence on screen, I found myself happy and smiling. And the other thing about this movie is that it's a female director, and I feel like it shows in many different places. But one of the subtle places that it shows, which I'm going to go ahead and mention now, which I think you only get from a female director and not a male director because men don't think about this, is when Black Canary is fighting and her hair gets in her face and she gets frustrated, and then Harley Quinn rolls over to her and says, "Hair tie?" And then Black Canary's, "Thank you," puts it up and then keeps fighting. And if a man was to direct that movie, and this isn't to say one's better than the other, but if a man was to direct the movie, more than likely they would just have her hair going around and just be like, "Yeah, this is fine." But for a woman directing the movie, she's going to think about the fact that this girl's hair is going to be getting in her face while she's trying to fight, and think to actually make that a detail that they can actually bring up and make for a funny moment as well as being practical. So I like that. And that was something that I thought was really cool. And it's really small, but it's a nice touch.
Definitely picked up on that. And during that sequence, the other thing that I was noticing was just their outfits were practical. I mean, yeah, like Harley Quinn is Harley Quinn. She's gonna be a little revealing and stuff like that. But she still got it, and they're all wearing boots. They're all wearing shoes that you can like have combat in, with the exception of the rollerblades. But
Harley
that
Quinn once again is the outlier.
it was Harley Quinn, and it was a fun thing. And like they even said, one of them said, when did she have time for a wardrobe
A
change?
shoe switch, a shoe
A
change.
shoe change, and that was just great. And it's funny because like after watching this movie, I just thought it was interesting because not too long ago we were doing Gunpowder Milkshake, and we were saying how rare it was to have movies like this with a female ensemble action movie where the women are wearing practical clothing and no heels. And then like here we go again, like another one, and I have to applaud that. The other thing that I really loved about this movie is the diversity. It's so like it's like I didn't really notice it until the very end because I was like, oh, there's a lot of females in this movie, and the females are very strong characters. And because I was so busy noticing that, I didn't really notice the diversity in it. But I think the other reason why I don't notice the diversity is because that's how the real world is diverse.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that I thought was interesting as far as choices go. Cassandra Cain's an actual character from the comic books, and for those people that don't know, Cassandra Cain is a girl that will eventually become Batgirl for a little while, and then after she's Batgirl for a while, she will branch out and take her own superhero persona. But she does have a spin. Like there's been multiple Robins, there been multiple Batgirls, and Cassandra Cain has actually been Batgirl at one point. So in this movie, she's obviously not going to be Batgirl. She's too young, and we're never going to see that character, this Cassandra Cain, be Batgirl in the movie. But it was nice that they included the character, just so that now that character does exist in film. And they did race swap Black Canary because Black Canary is normally white, but Cassandra Cain is Asian even in the comic books. So she's not she's not Filipino, I don't think specifically, but she is Asian. But either way, it's nice that that character does exist in this universe now. And other characters that they have, Renee Montoya, Helena Bertinelli. These are also characters that are famous in the comic books. Renee Montoya has notoriously been a famous detective that worked with Harvey Bullock in Gotham. She was in the Batman animated television show as well. And Helena Bertinelli, the Huntress, she's also someone that's a part of the Bat family. Was also in the Arrow television show if people watch that. And Mary Elizabeth Winstead plays her in this movie, and it's really I like that character a lot. I'm going to talk about like what I like about the characters in a moment, but out of all the characters that appear in this movie, I think her character works the most from a story perspective, um, more so than the other characters. But the fact is, like the characters that they chose for this ensemble movie are all characters that I like in the comic books. So I was happy to see them portrayed on screen.
Yeah, I did feel like I did. I know for sure that I didn't know who all the characters were. Even the Black Mask, I didn't know who that was. I know who Victor Zaz is,
Yeah.
um, uh, and and I thought that was cool. That you know, it just felt like all the characters, even though I didn't know who they all were from the universe. So that felt fun to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you should watch Batman Under the Red Hood because Black Mask actually appears in that movie.
I
So you
haven't.
can. I know you haven't seen it. I put it on that list of movies that I sent you. So at some point, watch Under the Red Hood. Um, but yeah, so like I have a lot of fun with this movie. So when I come to this movie, I don't say that it's a bad movie because I had fun with it. But I think that the movie does have some problems that I can't help but notice more on a second viewing. But before I get into that, one of the things I also liked about this movie is the runtime. It's not a 2.5 hour epic movie. It's an hour and 48 minutes. It gets in, it gets out, and you know, I feel like that allows for you to have more fun with the movie. But maybe in an ensemble movie, it might have actually hurt learning more about the ensemble. But in general, I like the length.
I did feel that because I knew who Black Canary was, and I was waiting for her to use her powers, and she only uses it once, really,
Yeah.
at the end, and then she passes out. And I was like, "What? That is not Black Canary. I mean, she just be yelling at everyone all day. That's her superpower."
Right. The canary cry, man. The canary cry. Metahumans.
So I was
Um,
like, I was just like, why isn't she using it? Why isn't she using it? But she finally does, and I'm like, yeah. And I guess they were just kind of using it as like a kind of like a trump card thing at the end for her to like
yeah,
make her look super strong at the end. But I feel like they could have amped it up, literally.
I agree. And part of that falls into the issue that I have with the movie and these characters because a lot of them actually don't get that much development and we don't get that much you don't really learn much about them in the way to like care about them. We get serviceable passing moments. We hear about the past that happened with Renee Montoya. We hear what happened to Black Canary's mom, but we don't see it. And one of the things about films, we always talk about show don't tell. In visual media, if we don't see it, a lot of times we don't care. And you see Helena Bertinelli's family get killed, and so you feel that, and you feel like how tragic that was for that character. But the tone of that is also different than the movie itself. The movie has kind of like two tones in it, and that's like the darkest of the dark, but it's juxtaposed against this kind of playful, wacky antics Harley Quinn movie. And so those specific dynamics are kind of at odds with each other. But at the very least, when it comes to the Huntress as a character, we see her history and therefore can be more connected to it. Whereas when we're just told about the history of Black Canary and the history of Renee Montoya, it actually doesn't give us a way to like grow with those characters or to see how they change or what they're struggling with. So they exist and they're cool characters as far as the things they do, but as far as being like actual well-rounded characters, they kind of fall short there, unfortunately, for me.
Yeah, I guess I do. Now that you mention it, could agree that a little bit more background for each of them would have been nice. Because even in the Suicide Squad, a little spoil here, they have conversations with each other that explain what their backgrounds are, and but they do it in a way where it's a heartfelt kind of thing, and so we feel what they're feeling deeply because they're explaining it, and while they're explaining it, we get flashbacks.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that helped build the relationships and the characters that they could have done in this movie without making it too much longer. But then again, the ensemble doesn't really get together until the very, very end, so it's a little hard to have that same dynamic where they can reveal things about themselves to each other, and they have to find some other way to show it. I think it didn't entirely bother me because going into this movie, one, I thought it would be bad, but it wasn't. And two, because I thought of it more of a Harley Quinn movie than an ensemble movie. So the ensemble part for me was kind of like a bonus. And when they all came together and realized that they had um, a shared like agenda, and that's why they're fighting together, that's when like really realized that it was going to be an ensemble, because that's when they actually become one. Otherwise, it's just a movie about Harley Quinn and a bunch of other people that are having different goals and stuff like that. But then it all comes together, and I think that's what I liked, is that it all came together, and then they became an ensemble, and then it was just really cool because I wasn't expecting it.
Yeah, and like I like it when they come together. I think the biggest thing that works against the movie is kind of one of the things you brought up, where it's meant to be a Harley Quinn movie more so than a Birds of Prey movie. And because of that, because even the information we get is based off the information that Harley Quinn knows. So the things that we see are based off of just information she has, but it's not based on her relationship to these characters. And a lot of times when you have ensemble movies, you build the relationship between each and every one of these characters. So the fact that they actually don't all meet up until the end of the movie doesn't allow them to actually build any type of connection with one another. And so it doesn't feel as strong when they actually are all together and working as a team. It's cool. One of the like this movie has like one of the coolest choreographies for a team fight, and where the camera moves, it's moving between all of them. They're all like tag teaming and working together, and it's actually one of the best just team fights I've seen put to film. But the emotional aspect of it isn't there, more than just it's cool, because of the fact that we haven't actually gotten to see them be together, have to learn to be a team, have them develop relationships with one another. I mean, just 5 minutes before that fight happens, we see Harley Quinn kick Renee Montoya out a window, you know, and it's like, oh, okay. And then a scene later, they're fighting together. So while I think it works, it's just from a standpoint of making you feel good. From a story standpoint, it feels a little lacking to me, only because the relationship between the characters is missing. So that moment isn't as earned as it is in, like, say, an Avengers movie where we just spent like an hour and a half listening to these people argue with each other, you know, and have to learn how to fight with each other.
It felt a little bit like the Justice League, the Whedon version, where
Mm-hmm.
it was a little butchered, but still, like, I mean, it wasn't as bad, but like coming from an outside perspective, not knowing
Yeah.
the background of, you know, the characters, it worked for me. So I think
Mm-hmm.
this is kind of a similar situation where, like, I don't know the background, and just coming from an outside view, it worked for me.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not a problem with having fun. Um, the main thing I'm like my criticisms just come from just kind of like a storytelling point of view, of just if it works story wise, and just because of the fact that we don't really get to know these characters, for me it doesn't work as well. And I think another issue for me is that I personally don't know how well Harley Quinn works as a lead. I think that in many ways she feels like Jack Sparrow in On Stranger Tides to me in this movie, because she actually doesn't really affect the plot. Well, and there's not really a plot in this movie. There's a MacGuffin, and the entire movie is getting the MacGuffin. So there's not really a plot. But that's fine. John Wick doesn't really have a plot either, so I won't count that against this movie. But she doesn't really affect the movie through her decisions, which is weird considering she is the main character and she is supposed to have like a goal of emancipating herself. So her whole thing is that I don't want the Joker to tell me what to do anymore. I'm free to do my own thing. But because they want to make Harley Quinn just kind of like this crazy like Deus Ex Machina, she has no goals for herself, and she just all she wants to do is get a sandwich for the most of the movie until her sandwich is destroyed. But and which is funny, but it doesn't create character motivation. And then afterwards, when she does have the motivation to go after Cassandra to get the diamond, it's motivation that was given to her by a man. So she's still doing something that a man is telling her to do. And it's not until the end of the movie when she kind of feels like, okay, now I'm going to go and save her because I want to save her. But it basically means that since she's our main character, she kind of just bumbles her way through the movie, kind of like Jack Sparrow, gets lucky in situations where it makes it look like she doesn't know what she's doing, which in the movie even admits it is blind luck. And I feel like that's just unfortunate because there's room to play with Harley Quinn as a smart and capable person as well, because she is a psychiatrist. And they even have that scene where she basically breaks down exactly the problems that Cassandra has because she actually is smart and she is intelligent. And I think for me, seeing that they even kind of hinted at it or played with it, it feels disappointing that they don't utilize it more often for that character and her arc or her development.
Yeah, I guess it's hard for me to imagine Harley Quinn, or at least this Harley Quinn, being smart because they made her really dumb in like the other movies.
Yeah.
Like they really make her like ditzy and like unaware of what's actually happening.
Yeah.
And so I can kind of see why they didn't they kept true to the way they already depicted her character. So it felt natural to me for the way that things had progressed in the movie. And again, like the way they were just, you know, structuring the movie at the beginning with, it being mainly about her, and then like introducing the other characters in, like, yes, it becomes less and less about her and it becomes more of an ensemble, which I guess like normally probably this kind of stuff would bother me, but I
Yeah.
think because of the nature of the characters, it just felt like it was another one of those times where, like Tomorrow War, where I didn't know where I was in the movie in terms of like where are we in the stages of a movie, the 3-act structure, right? I didn't know
Yeah.
where I was, and part of that was because of the way that the movie was structured, with Harley telling stories out of order, and then having these other characters come into play, and then it turning into an ensemble. So I think because of the unnatural presentation of the story structure, it felt it didn't feel unusual to me, I guess. Like it didn't,
Right.
because they already made it weird. So her having a weird um, main character arc, not being conventional, felt natural to me.
I mean, and that's fine. And like that's gonna come down to each individual. I feel like as a whole though, it is hard to make the Harley that they've created work as a main character the same way it's hard to make Jack Sparrow work as a main character.
Yeah.
I think Harley is great when she has other people to play on. And when she's with the Birds of Prey, I think it's also great that when she's in those scenes with them. But for her to kind of like carry a movie is part of the reason why the plot doesn't really move along through her. It moves along because of a random act of this one girl being in the wrong place at the right time and stealing a diamond, and then the story or the environment pushes Harley along, rather than Harley. So rather than Harley influencing her world, the world influences her. Um, which, I don't think works, but it's that's just gonna come down to like an individual taste at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree that it would be weird to have her be the main character without the other characters, similar to like Jack Sparrow,
Yeah,
where it would just be odd to have her carry the movie on her own.
yeah,
That's probably why they decided to have this ensemble so that she could have others to work off of.
I
Um,
agree.
and I can't really imagine a movie where she does carry the movie by herself. I feel it would be a lot like Joker, the movie Joker.
Oh yeah, no,
Where
I
it'll
agree,
just
and
be
that's
really sad and not fun.
no, I agree, and that's probably why I think that Harley Quinn should not have her own movie, because of that exact reason. But I think that the next question then becomes, well, then what kind of ensemble movie do you put her in? And it feels weird for her to be in a team movie for a team she's not a part of. So like when you choose the Birds of Prey, it feels better or feels good when they all come together as a team. But the fact that she doesn't have any real bearing on the team, at the end, what it ends up feeling like to me is that they had a Birds of Prey movie that they wanted to make, but felt like there weren't enough well-known characters in there to make that movie. And they had a Harley Quinn movie that they wanted to make, but they didn't feel like Harley Quinn could carry a movie on her own. And so they combined these two ideas to try to get them to work, which is why even the title itself says Birds of Prey. And it's not just Birds of Prey, it's Birds of Prey and basically this long title with Harley Quinn. Um, but at the end of the day, those two movies, I don't know necessarily work 100% for what they want to do because by the end of the day, as far as the Birds of Prey go, we don't get to know them much better than we do when we start, except for maybe Helena Bertinelli. But then Harley Quinn, we get to basically have some fun and spend a lot of time with Harley Quinn. Um, and so now, I guess the question is, do they make? Well, I mean, I think we know the answer, but do they make a Birds of Prey movie without Harley Quinn? Probably not.
Yeah, to be honest, I think they might be done. I would be surprised if they made more DC films at this point. Just
Yeah.
because it seems like there's no infrastructure
Mm-hmm.
for the universe. So I don't know if they're really gonna make more. Maybe for like individuals, but not ensembles. Like I can see them
Probably not.
maybe doing like a Flash movie. I think they are gonna do a Flash movie.
Yeah,
Um,
Flashpoint, which will give them excuse to reset everything. I don't. You probably haven't seen Flashpoint Paradox. That's another movie you should probably watch. Just you can see kind of like what the idea is behind it.
yeah, there's a lot to play with DC. So it's hard to say what they're really gonna do out there. But like I said, there's no infrastructure right now, so who knows what they're gonna try to do next.
Right. So we're coming up on time. There's more that I can bring up, but I can move that to just our like general Twitch talk. Is there anything else that you just wanted to kind of get off your chest about like what you did enjoy about the movie or like anything you didn't bring up so far?
I mean, for the big main points, yes, I think I covered everything. But I think what I enjoyed the most about the movie were the little jokes. It was just a really fun and entertaining movie.
Yeah.
If you're not thinking so much about like the structure of the movie and the character development, the jokes are in there. It's funny. I think it's
Yeah.
comparable to the Suicide Squad in terms of jokes and having little moments.
Yeah.
I think it's the jokes are maybe not quite up there, but it's up there with the
They're good.
Suicide Squad.
The R rating also helps this movie. This is another R-rated DC movie, and I'm starting to feel like I think I prefer my DC movies to be rated R.
Yeah, I mean that is the nature of DC. It's not Marvel.
Right? I feel I need to stop pushing these PG-13 ratings on these superhero movies. I kind of just want to see more R. I want to see my superheroes dropping F bombs in this DC world because it feels more real.
Yeah.
Yeah, Birds of Prey is R-rated. I was surprised too. There's a lot of f-bombs that get dropped. There's violence, but it's not as bad as Suicide Squad. Like, would you say it's
It's easier
like
to watch. Yeah.
yeah,
I think my favorite besides the epic battle at the end, I really enjoyed when Harley Quinn goes to break into the jail, and she's got like these like cannons of like color
these
bombs
glitter
and
bombs.
glitter. And then she comes like to this moment where she has to like pick up a weapon, and there's like a variety. There's like a chainsaw and stuff like that, and of course she picks up the bat, and that was
That's
just
like
like such a cool moment. She's like, "Oh yeah, my favorite
yeah.
thing."
The other cool thing that this movie remembers, it's like that thing where you're like, hey, Batman's a detective. The other thing this movie remembers is like, hey, you know that Harley Quinn is a gymnast, and so you see her flexing that a lot. You see her like cartwheeling and flipping, and it feels really good. It feels like you're watching an animated version of Harley Quinn. She literally in that scene where she picks up that bat, she literally like flips. She like she like flips with the guy and then like flips through his legs and then kind of flips back to her feet and rolls over his back and then hits him with the bat. It's like there's a lot of really cool movement that Margot Robbie or her stunt double were able to pull off in this movie that feel like Harley Quinn for people that have like seen that character in action in the cartoons. And I have to give it praise for that. The choreography, but also the fact that they take into account her fighting style, which was more on display here than it was in the Suicide Squad, I would say.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments. I think little details that they did. It feels like they worked very hard on this movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And the problems that I have are like problems that I would have with any movie, but at the same time, that's why one reason I wanted to make sure I said that I at the end of the day I still had fun with it. I wouldn't say it's a bad movie, but there are elements that you probably don't want to utilize yourself when writing a movie like this. But either way, last thoughts, and are you good?
I'm good.
All right. So you guys we're going to talk a little bit more about this on our Twitch channel. If you guys want to check us out on our Twitch channel, it's twitch.tv/C3Films. But what did you guys think about Birds of Prey and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn? Did you enjoy the movie? Did you kind of feel like me where there were things that didn't work where you like Cheryl where it just didn't bother you and you were able to have fun regardless? Whatever you thought, comment below. Let us know. And while you're down there, if you can give us a like, share, and subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Joker. We'll see you next time.